McGrowl, Book 2, Chapter 15. Pleasant Dreams. The evening news was abuzz with exciting developments as well. The Compton mansion was the lead story. It had collapsed, as Channel 6 incorrectly reported, from an infestation of giant warrior termites. Muchnick and Von Vleck seemed to have disappeared into thin air. Repeated calls to the campaign headquarters weren't returned, and a missing persons report was filed with the police. Stanley Fitch was declared the winner in the city's first undisputed mayoral race. He was quick to point out that the disappearance of Muchnick coincided strangely with an abrupt halt in the robberies that had plagued the little town. Officer Nelson breathed a sigh of relief. He decided that with crime once more on the decline, he would stay on the force. No more supermarket managing for this man in blue. The news ended with a brief but exciting mention of the fact that Thomas Wiggins and his dog McGrowl had won the dog show hands down in the single most exciting performance that had ever been witnessed. McGrowl and Thomas stared quietly at the gleaming silver trophy on the mantel. Yes, it had been hard work, but seeing the smile on the boy's face had made every minute of the exhausting day well worth the effort. Thomas hurried upstairs to brush and floss. "Sleep tight, don't let the termites bite. Bedbugs," Mrs. Wiggins finished calling out their nightly ritual and went outside to wash and wax the car. Thomas and McGrowl were resting peacefully in Thomas's bed. Thomas could barely keep his eyes open. He looked sleepily over at McGrowl. Trophies were nice, he thought, but friends were nicer, especially furry yellow friends that slept on your bed and protected you. McGrowl snuggled deeper into the warm furrow between the boy's arm and his side. Thomas thought about the dog show, then he thought about his adventure under the mansion, and then he thought about how glad he was that Muchnick and Von Vleck were no longer in the picture. "Night, McGrowl," he whispered. The boy looked long and hard into the boy's big brown eyes. "What in the world would I ever do without you?" McGrowl looked at Thomas gratefully and then rolled over onto his back and assumed the "scratch my tummy if you love me" position. The boy scratched, and as if such a thing were actually possible, the dog seemed to purr contentedly. The air was crisp and cool, and the smell of the autumn leaves burning in the distance tickled Thomas's nose. Life was very good indeed. And then Thomas fell fast asleep. A light rain began to fall. McGrowl thought he saw a couple of snowflakes mixed in it. Soon they would be sledding and snowmen and evenings by the fireplace. The dog was breathing deep, quiet breaths, and his eyelids closed. He, too, was weary from a long, hard day. He rested a watchful paw on Thomas's shoulder. Thomas's night light filled the room with a gentle glow. Dog and boy snored peacefully at last. Identical dreams filled their heads. A pile of mashed potatoes, ice skating, Christmas dinner, rock climbing, an evil stranger climbing a hill and peering back down at them. The dog awoke in a flash, and in that moment he knew the strangers were alive. The dog could sense them as clearly as if they were standing directly in front of him. They were bruised and they were battered, but they were very much alive. No avalanche was big enough to destroy them. Thomas stirred fitfully. The boy, too, was aware of the forces of evil that threatened their very existence, had subsided only momentarily. The dog eased himself into the comforter and rested his head on Thomas's pillow and closed his eyes again. It had been a long, hard day, and he would need all his energy to fight the evil strangers when they next returned. Rain turned to snow. Powdery white drifts formed in yards and streets, and in the distance a train chugged lazily by. McGrowl was asleep. He dreamed of a day without evil, a day without fear, a day of peace. That day would come, but not for a long, long time. The end.